Hi guys, in this video I'm going to go over all the resources and basic supplies that you'll need to put together a variety of types of shoes. So we're going to take a really close look at shoe construction, the materials used, different sole types of materials, the fabrics, vinyl, all those types of things, trims and all that. So let's go take a closer look at all the basic supplies. We have in front of us here a variety of supplies for making shoes. So I'm going to walk through each of these and describe a little bit in detail what they are and what they're used for. First, I'm going to start with a basic shoe. Just so you can look, this right here is the No-Sew Jane's shoe. It's made using a trim for the shoe body, woven cotton fabric for the lining inside, and then it's wrapped with cording around the side, and it has 6mm foam and a piece of chipboard inside. So those are all the pieces used for this shoe pattern. Now this shoe is the original Jane's shoe, and this one is made using a woven cotton that's in a stripe, and so the pattern pieces go in opposite directions just to give it some interest and detail. This one has woven cotton fabric. It's also lined in a fabric and has lining of woven cotton on the inside of the sole. It has a thinner 2mm foam sole and 2 pieces of chipboard on the inside of this shoe, and then it's wrapped with a braided trim just to cover that seam. It also has some elastic right in this V, which is really just a detail. It's not really for functionality for putting the shoe on. It's just an added design detail. And then on this little shoe, this is the open toe Jane's for Welly Wishers, and this one uses a woven cotton fabric as well. It has the elastic detail right there, and then it has elastic used as the wrapping to cover the sole foam joining the shoe. So this one has a nice texture. It sort of looks like the edge of a rubber tennis shoe, so the elastic shapes really easily and is a nice use for that when it's such a small design. But you can interchange those types of trims on any of the shoe patterns. So now let's talk about fabric. We have some fabric over here, and we use primarily woven cotton. Quilting cottons work really well. Here's a selection of some that have been cut in squares to be covers for the inside of a shoe. And so you can pick a variety of patterns. Small prints work really well. Even the large prints work because the pieces are cut in small designs. Stripes work really well. Polka dots are perfect. So there's a lot of choices to choose from in these types of fabrics. This one right here is a corduroy fabric. So it has a nice corduroy nap on it, and this makes a really cute pair of Jane's. It's not really a striped fabric, but it looks similar and provides that type of interest and detail with the different direction of the nap of the fabric when the shoe is put together. So this one's a good type of fabric to use for that as well. Another type of fabric that we can use for the shoe body is pre-purchased trims. So here are a few examples, and these are a couple inches wide. Depending on the pattern size that you're picking will be the width of the trim that you can use. So for the 18-inch size, a 2-inch trim works fine, and this is for the No-Sew Jane's. So you can use a trim like this, and this becomes the body of the shoe. This again is an example of that. So this right here is the edge of the trim. There's no sewing needed, no hemming at all. They just glue together on the sides, and the finished edges of the trim are the open side of the shoe. So this is another variety, and this comes in several colors. These trims are by Simplicity, so if you look at Simplicity's website or at Joann's, you can find these pretty readily available. And then this one over here is just a smaller, narrower one. So something like this could work pretty easily or nicely for the 14-inch Hearts for Hearts size, Welly Wishers, Luxury, anything that's a little bit smaller like that. Now let's look at shoe soles. The shoe construction on most of the patterns uses a chipboard base, and this is relatively thick cardboard. It has a little bit of flexibility to it, but it's much stronger than like a cereal box or some type of cardboard like that. So this provides a good base. Generally this would be wrapped in fabric, and then it's layered underneath it with a piece of foam. So the two pieces would be sandwiched together, and this would be the base of the shoe, and this would be the inside of the shoe with your fabric going in between these two layers. Now on the Jane's shoe pattern, we use 2 pieces of chipboard. So they sandwich like this, and we have, this is the inside of the shoe, and then these together would be the bottom of the shoe, but we use a narrower, thinner piece of foam. So there's different combinations. When these are glued together, this provides a very sturdy insole for the shoe, and the shoe becomes very rigid. So it has a good durability and lasts for a long time. Now for what we're selling on Pixie Fair, the patterns are labeled shape 1, shape 2, shape 3, or sometimes even shape 4. So this right here is the shape 1 sole. It is the most used sole with the patterns that we have. It's for the 18-inch doll. So you'll notice an icon on the pattern in the pattern description and supply list if it needs a shape 1 sole. This is the shape that you're looking for. And the soles would mirror each other, so you'd have a right foot and a left foot. And you can see that the toes point slightly towards the inside where the big toe of the foot would be. Now there's also another shape that is sometimes interchangeable and sometimes just using this shape 4. But the shape 1 and the shape 4, you can see them here side by side. They're very, very similar. The shape 4 has a slightly more indented arch and a little bit wider toe across the top. So some patterns will say they use both shape 1 and shape 4. Others might say they use just shape 4. Now many of you might have a die that cuts this shape 4. It was previously sold by Punch Place Plus. I'm not sure if they still sell it, but I know that it's out there. So if you're looking for patterns that are compatible with that die, then you would notice that they say they have a shape 4 shoe sole. But many of the patterns like that, like I said, if you look at these, are interchangeable between shape 4 and shape 1. Now here's a look at two different widths of foam. This is 6mm foam and this is 2mm foam. So you can see here how the thickness difference is. And these are used interchangeably. Sometimes the 6mm foam is used in a shoe pattern that only uses one piece of chipboard, and the 2mm foam is used with a pattern that might use 2 pieces of chipboard. So it just depends on the preference of the shoe designer. Now most foam in the patterns is just glued down to the shoe, but this one right here is a sticky back foam. So you can see right here, this has some stickiness adhesive already on one side. So if you can find that and you can cut that out, that can save a little bit of time, just not having to apply glue on the back side. Now here's a look at the shape 3 and the shape 2 shoe sole. Now you can see these side by side. They are definitely a different size. Shape 2 was designed before Wally Wishers were even available. So this is for the 14-inch doll, like Hearts for Hearts. It also works for La Cherie. So some of the patterns will say they use shape 2. Now this can work on a closed toe shoe. It will still fit a Wally Wisher because their foot's smaller. So as long as you can't see the toes, this design and size will fit on a Wally Wisher doll. So some of the patterns will say that it will fit both dolls, and that would be why. Now this other sole, which is a shape 3, has been designed after the release of the Wally Wishers doll. So it has a little bit more curve, it's a little bit shorter, a little bit wider toe, and this works for the patterns that say specifically shape 3. Generally this is a close fit on the Wally Wisher foot. It is too small though for a Hearts for Hearts doll. So if you have both dolls, then you might want to try to do patterns that are designed with the shape 2 sole, and you know that you can put them on dolls interchangeably. But if you only have Wally Wishers, or you're making shoes just for a Wally Wishers doll, especially sandals or like the open toe Janes, then this shape 3 is the size that you would want to use. So again, here they are side by side, and you can just see how the sizes compare. And then just to further illustrate, these do also mirror each other. So you would use them where the arches are the inside of the foot, and you can see how that would be when they're side by side using the same type of material. Now another material that we can use along with the foam, and I have them all sitting right here so you can kind of see, this is 6mm foam, this is 2mm foam, and then this is a roll or a sheet of cork. So this is a really nice sort of authentic looking bottom to a shoe, or even the inside of a shoe. And this you can find at many craft stores. Sometimes you can get it on a large roll or just an 8.5 by 11 or 12 by 12 sheet. So you can see that here, and that can be used pretty interchangeably anytime you see a reference to foam on the bottom of the shoe. If you wanted to, you could also use something like cork. And there are a few patterns out there that have a technique to actually seal this because it's a little bit flaky. like it's clear coated, so you can look in some of those patterns, and I'll be sure to include that in the text part of the post. Now let's take a look at some of the trims. There's a variety of trims that you can use to wrap around the outside of the sole. So here's a collection of a few. Now this right here in the light blue is a midi braid, and you can find this at a lot of places. You could look it up on Amazon, find it at the fabric store. You can do 1/4 inch, 3/8, and any of those would look great wrapped around the edge of a shoe. This right here is a piece of elastic, so you can see this kind of has some stretch to it, but this was shown on that open-toed Jane's shoe where it has the ridges in it, so it kind of mimics the look of the rubber edge of a tennis shoe. And then these are just a few different types of braided trims or cording. So these types of cording or braided trims are a great resource. And if you could only find this natural color, you could easily dye this to match whatever fabric you were using. So you could get spools of this or like trim bolts of this type of trim and then dye batches of it to match your fabrics. Ribbon is also a great resource for some of the patterns. You can use this as a pull tab on the back of the shoe. So here's an example of that. We have this 1/4 inch ribbon that is on the shoe. It's glued down on both the inside and the outside, and it creates a pull tab, so it's easy to pull that up over the heel of the doll. And you could add this to any shoe that slipped on and off like this. Even if the pattern doesn't include it in the instructions, you could easily add something like this to the back of the shoe and then do that before you glue your shoe down inside, and then that's just an added help for getting that shoe on and off. Now a few of my favorite, most essential supplies would be Heat and Bond and Steam-A-Seam. So both of these are an adhesive that you would iron on, and they have a sticky feel to them and a paper backing. The Steam-A-Seam is sticky. You can feel that has a little bit of stick on it, and you press that down. The instructions are in the pattern, but this is great. This is used in the no-sew Janes to assemble the whole entire shoe. It's also used in patterns that have sewing as a stabilizer or to hold the seams together before you sew, something like that. So this is great. I use this for shoes. I use this for a variety of patterns. It's a great supply to have on hand all the time. And then this right here is Heat and Bond, which we've cut into strips because we use this on the side piece of the Janes. So this is pressed down, and you can see right here it's got the glue beads on one side. So once you press this and peel the paper off and then you press the fabric on the other side, it really adds a stability to the shoe. So the fabric has a little bit of firmness as the side of the shoe, which really helps with getting the shoe on and off the foot and the long-term durability of those shoes. So you can buy this in packages, in sheets, and you can cut it as you go. Like I said, this has been cut down to match the size of the pattern piece for the side of the Jane's shoe pattern. Other types of elastic are really good too. This one right here is a braided knit elastic, and this is used in that toe piece of the Janes. It has a nice flat texture. It's not ribbed like the kind we showed you that we wrap around the edge of the sole. Now, if you're creating shoes that lace up, you can get cording. This is a 2mm cording that we've bought, and you can get this in a variety of colors. Or if you want something really narrow and fine, you can get this type of craft cording, which also makes a very nice lace on a doll shoe, especially if you get smaller than 18 inch. And of course, many of the patterns call for eyelets, especially if there's lacing on them. So you can get little metal eyelets, and you have an eyelet setter like a crocodile, and that will punch holes and set these right into the shoe. And generally those are done with a thick, heavy-duty shoe, canvas fabric, or on vinyl. So you can get eyelets in a variety of colors and a variety of sizes. So then that eyelet hole will really determine the thickness of your lacing. If you have a big enough eyelet that thicker 2mm cord will fit through, then that size is fine. But if you want to use a really small eyelet, then you're going to need to either use embroidery floss or that thinner cording to lace up your shoe through the smaller eyelets. Now, buckles are another important shoe resource, and this is actually a purchased shoe, but I'm just using it to show you how tiny these little buckles are. So we'll have resources for where to find some different size buckles, but these are honestly hard to find when you want to just purchase buckles. Some of the easiest places to find items like these little tiny buckles is on a bag or a purse that you might pick up at Goodwill. So sometimes you can find bags and they have lots of little buckles on them, and it's perfect, and you can just cut them off and use them for your projects. So just keep your eye out for stuff like that as you're out and about and looking around at discount stores, garage sales, anything like that. You could find a variety of different little buckles. Now this shoe also has another example that is great. It's a textured foam on the bottom. So it has foam and then a textured foam. And sometimes you can find this at the craft store on a sheet that has different types of patterns on them. You can use a tool to press down and create your own indented pattern on regular foam. Or you can look for items like rubber shelf liners or even like a rubber placemat and find that where it has a very nice texture. You just want to make sure that that is safe for children. If you're using items like that that are not specifically marketed towards kids, make sure that if you're going to sell your shoes, that it's safe to use those products. Now another supply and material that we've used is vinyl, and here's a couple rolls. This is a glittery patent vinyl, black vinyl. We have a variety of other ones here. So I'm just going to unroll this so you can see what this is like, what the texture is. It's definitely flexible. I could shape this and mold it around that chipboard shoe sole. So this is called marine vinyl, and we bought most of these colors through fabric.com. I'll put links in the resources section. I've also found some colors at fabric stores in the home upholstery section. You can find this type of vinyl. So it has a lightweight mesh sort of fabric backing on the back and then the vinyl texture on the front. So this is great. There's a lot of patterns that use this type of material. This gives a very authentic looking shoe. So this is a good one to use, and we'll cover in a future section working with gluing this down and adhering it to the sole and all of that. And then lastly, this is a Pellon fusible interfacing. It's pretty thick and sturdy, and this is used in the plain Jane's shoe pattern. So this one is a good one to have on hand. It's used in place of the chipboard as the regular type of shoe construction. So this one goes together really easily, and we have a step-by-step tutorial made by Chris, which is great and walks you through the whole process of using this product and making that shoe pattern. So that has been a pretty in-depth look at the different types of supplies and resources that you're going to need to make shoes. So as we work through this course, we're going to show some examples using the no-sew Janes, regular Janes, and the open-toe Janes to just kind of walk through the process of making shoes and how the construction and all of that works. So now it's time to get your pattern, gather up your supplies, and really think through the type of shoe you want to create, and then we can get started on our shoe project.